Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back. We've got quite a bit to talk about, so gather around that virtual fireplace because we're still in the dead of winter. Disney gave us a very strange, peculiar Christmas present. I've already talked about it before on the channel right up here, and you can definitely go check that out. But things have gotten much, much worse, at least for Disney and for their film due out March 21st called Snow White. That's right. Rachel Zegler has been causing them no end of problems. And instead of bringing cheer to us this holiday, because it released on Christmas, this special look of this special song, it brought a snowstorm of dislikes, an absolute blizzard of butchery, for lack of a better way of putting it. And yes, the House of Mouse did drop a preview featuring Rachel Zegler serenading us with the Waiting on a Wish, the replacement for I'm Waiting for My Prince to Come, or Wishing Well, or whatnot. Whatever that song was called, that was a classic for time immemorial and is even represented in the theme parks, in particular in Disneyland. Yeah, they decided they were going to replace that because, this princess needs no man. The reaction to that overall is, let's just say the audience wasn't exactly whistling while they worked that dislike button, because there was a bunch of those. We're going to get to that in just a second. But before we do, please double check that you're still subscribed to the channel. Hit that little red button down there if it's red and turn it to gray. It's absolutely free subscriptions for everybody right now. And hit that bell icon and make sure that you don't miss anything by selecting all notifications. With that said, let's continue on. 16,000 dislikes and 2,900 likes as of the time of the reporting of our good friends over there at That Park Place. And Marvin Martinero wrote a great article all the way back on December 27th. And the ratio gets worser and worser, for lack of a better way to put it. In fact, as Marvin has said, it's not a ratio, it's a landslide, or in this case, an avalanche. I don't know. At the time of this recording, however, we have over 20,000 dislikes and only a handful of likes, comparatively. Exactly 32 to be fair, and you probably can see that right here on your screen. And what's really going on here isn't actually about the song that she's singing. It's basically just the perfect storm of controversy, criticism, and casting decisions that led us to this point in time. Not to mention some public statements that have been said along the way, which we're going to get into in just a moment. But this has gone basically virally nuclear. It's a lightning rod for backlash, and it deserves to be covered regularly. So here we are. The film itself visually has some problems. There's some issues with the CGI dwarves because they didn't want to use, real dwarves. So they shifted to the magical companions, and then we shifted back to dwarves because, they were getting throttled for not doing so. And let's just say, as of right now, these are not charmed-filled characters. They have a lot of uncanny valley built into them, and we haven't really heard a lot of interaction between them and her. And that could be the fault of Disney for not giving us more in-depth trailers, or it could be the fault of Disney for going to their third or fourth plan down the road after they had already had multiple rejections from an audience before they'd probably gotten to any of the post-production from the first time they shot this film. And that's right, I just said the first time they shot this film. This film has been shot more than once, many times, actually. Much of this film has been reshot many times, and it's only getting worse. The release date, as I mentioned before, is March 21st. If you aren't ready already, Disney, you've got a world of hurt coming your way. And again, with those visual missteps, fans are calling them out. They're accusing Disney of phoning it in at this point, when they should have been, really focused on just how high stakes this remake was. This is basically the film that at the time saved Disney or made Disney, depending upon your perspective. And it was unique in so many different ways, including in receiving a bunch of Academy Awards, actually just one and then 7 smaller ones, because again, there was focus on those 7 dwarfs. Not in this one. It's just Snow White, Warrior Queen, which I guess is what they're trying to push. I'm not sure the feminist message is going to sell well in this. I think a lot of people are going to be angry. Rachel Zegler herself is just a complete mess. She is basically a film killer at this point and has had zero success across the board on whatever it is she's made, including the most recent film that she shot, which we'll talk about in a moment, Y2K, which I think made only about $4 million total on a $16 million budget. That's not good for you, Rachel, or for Disney, or for the prospects of this film. And again, one more thing towards visuals, she does not embody the character. She is not what comes readily to mind when you think about Snow White. She was supposed to be a timeless symbol of innocence and charm. And Rachel Zegler feels a bit more like she's in the wrong fairy tale. And I agree. At least we know Gal Gadot's in the right one. She's just in the wrong role, which we'll get to here in a moment. Of course, the thing that stands out most to fans, and probably you as well, is the fact that nobody likes Rachel Zegler. It's not just the visuals, it's the fact that she's been a polarizing figure from day one. The minute she entered Hollywood in a version of West Side Story, I don't think that was a good decision-making process by Steven Spielberg, and I don't think it was a good casting to bring her into that in the first place, because it foisted her onto us instead of another quality actress that could have been a little bit more endearing. I think a little more adversity for Rachel Zegler would have helped her career from beginning to end, and probably her attitude. And again, I go back to some of the first statements that she made, including the fact that she said she would not be bleaching her skin for the role. That statement alone set off quite the firestorm, if you recall. A lot of people saw that as defensive, which it was, and others are feeling it was unnecessarily alienating from the classic character's fan base, which, again, she was white as snow. I'm not really sure what's going on here, but I do believe that it's largely driven by just this lady herself. She is terrible in interviews. She likened herself to priceless sculptures in the Louvre. Ambitious? Well, sure. I mean, self-involved, vain? Indeed. But for many, it came off as tone deaf and overly self-aggrandizing, which I don't think anybody could argue with. And it doesn't help that her comments take it even further. She talks about the original Snow White, calling the prince a stalker and labeling the classic story as outdated and sexist. That may have been a bridge too far for many of Disney's traditional audience, including me. In fact, I often find anything that she says to be irritating because I guess that's her whole shtick, being an activist first and an actress second or third or fourth. I would say she's probably more focused on her singing, but lately, and in this recent special look, I didn't find anything special about her voice, nor the song, which I think is going to fall flat in theaters and probably in soundtracks. Disney always likes to get that flywheel spinning, but I'm going to tell you right now, there is no wheel spinning for this film. Worse yet is her using her position and this film as a political punching bag. Her public statements have sparked significant political backlash and community backlashes as well. Her advocacy for Palestine turned out to be particularly goading in light of the fact that Gal Gadot is a veteran of the Israeli army. That created some intense tension, for lack of a better way to put it. And her post-election social media post about the president-elect went over like a lead balloon. It broke the internet for a couple of days, and not in a good way. The phrase specifically, "May Trump and his supporters never know peace," caused so much outrage that Zegler was forced to issue an apology, or at least her publicists were. There's no way I believe she crafted that herself, and there's no way I believe that she actually meant any of it. So if many people were feeling the same way and did not believe it was heartfelt, the only other option is damage control, which it didn't do at all. Now let's get back to something I talked about earlier, her career and its success, which there has been limited success. Adding fuel to that fire, of course, is the recent film Y2K, which bombed hard, like one of the worst I think I've ever seen, raking in just over $4 million at the box office to date. And for an actress allegedly already under scrutiny, this underperformance could further sour public opinion, not to mention studio opinion. And as Marvin says here, when you combine all these controversies together with the dislike ratio, which is just ridiculous. If you take a look at even the recent preview, that ratio is not spectacular. But if you look at the first look for this film, that thing was well over 1.3 million dislikes. a ratio that I don't think I have ever seen before. And combining every look we've had at this and everything we've heard about it, there's a very troubling trend. Audiences are not rejecting the movie per se, they're rejecting the actress that's in it and what she represents to them, and probably what she represents to Disney, which I think they're probably going to want to bail on as soon as they possibly can. So ultimately, here we are with Disney facing a backlash, a giant mountain. They have an uphill battle regardless to win fans back before Snow White hits the theaters in March. That's not a lot of time. 3 months now, or 3.5 months from now, this film needs to be the gold standard that Disney used to represent. I don't think it's going to make it. What do you think? Will the legacy of this beloved classic, this story, this original story anyway, I don't know about what this thing will be that we're going to see, triumph over a rough rollout? Or is it destined to join Disney's growing list of recent misfires, which there are many? And while they did have a few successes this year, they managed a few. Largely, those were devoid of politically divisive storylines, arguments, and characters. Disney is now going out of their way to reduce that type of content even further, especially on Pixar's new Win or Lose show that'll be on Disney Minus in the near future. So now we actually reach the audience participation part of the video. Do you believe that Snow White is doomed to bomb? Are you surprised by the massive dislike ratio on this video and it continues to grow? Or is this just par for the course and the latest type of discourse on all of the social media platforms? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments section below. And as always, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, and until next time, see ya.